All right, welcome everybody. We are doing another live stream. So if you have never joined into any one of these before, we do these once a month or so. Sometimes it's on a very specific topic, sometimes it's very general. So welcome to the show. So we are streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook right now. Whether you're a member, whether you're a guest, whether your buddy invited you, we're glad to have you. So I'm Plenty Gale. I work for FLP Marketing. And I am joined today by Senior Vice President of Legal Operations, Attorney Terry L. Johnson. How you doing today, Terry?
Plenty. It is always good to see you, and I'm looking forward to tonight. It's what we do. I mean, I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, I think. And I think this will be a great episode for anybody who's watching live, but also for future shareable content for anybody who just kind of wants to play catch up. In many webinars that we've done in the past, we've talked really in depth about specific topics. And you've done a great job of kind of leading us on those journeys as we really get into the weeds about a lot of details. But I think that creates a cause for kind of a back to the basics lesson. And so that's why we called this one the spirit of our service. There are a whole bunch of people who sign up for firearms legal protection. Maybe they heard about it in a class, maybe they heard about it from a friend or at some event or seminar, and they realize, wow, that's something I really need, but they may not know exactly how all of it works. So that's what we're going to talk through today.
Outstanding. There's so much. I don't know if we can get it all in an hour, but let's give it a shot.
Yep, we're going to try. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So there is a discount code available in the description. So if you are not a member, check out that description of this video, whether you're in YouTube or Facebook, you'll see that discount code. And so you'll be able to see that, click that link, and you'll be able to sign up, use that code. It's a fantastic deal. I know some people submitted questions in advance of this event. We had a lot of questions that were related to other topics because we've covered so many other things. We tried to answer those individually ahead of the show. But if you have a question about one of the slides that we're going through during the webinar, just type it in the chat. And if it's related to the slide we're on, we'll try to get to it in real time as much as we can. All right, so with that, I am going to share my screen here. So we are Firearms Legal Protection. And today we're talking about the spirit of our service. So Terry, why don't you take it away? Tell us a little bit, tell everybody just kind of who we are, what we stand for here.
It's my pleasure, really to talk about firearms legal protection. I mean, we work here, and, I'm sure I speak for Plenty and every other employee that works with us. We are just excited about what we do because we really enjoy helping people. And here at Firearms Legal Protection, one of the things that you are most familiar with is that we provide uncapped attorney's fees for you. If you ever have to use a firearm in defense of yourself or others. But what a lot of people don't know is we also cover you for any use of legal weapons. So if you've got to pick up a knife, a 2x4, a baseball bat, as long as it's legal in the area, the state that you're in, we're going to cover you just as if you used a firearm. And, that's really phenomenal because a lot of our members may not have a concealed permit. So that's something that's really wonderful. But, Plenty outside of that, here's the other thing. We have all these other benefits that people really don't understand that we, what we do and what we have. And that's something I really want to get into tonight. So I see you've got on the screen, like bail bonds and, the mere fact that we operate a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week attorney answered emergency hotline. And I emphasize emergency because, when you need us most, we want to be there for you. That's who we are.
Absolutely.
And again, we're based in Dallas, Texas. And by the way, what's the temperature in Dallas today?
Today It is the first day. It's kind of felt like fall, and we're in the 80s today. So it
Oh,
is
geez.
beautiful. I love it.
Well, like I tell you, in Michigan, it's, about the mid to low 70s, perfect day, and, great day for football. But, we're going to stay on topic here. And, a couple of other things about us. We're not a training company. We're not a law firm. We're not a publication company. We just specialize in providing legal defense for those people who have had to use a weapon in self-defense, whether you're defending yourself or defending others. And as I mentioned before, you don't need a permit to be a part of our organization. You just have to fill out an application. And again, to my knowledge, we've never ever rejected a single application. So all are welcome. And I'm just really excited about this. Our vice president of member benefits, Linda Bishop, who actually runs this area, wasn't able to be with us tonight due to a family emergency. So our thoughts and prayers are with her. But I'm going to try and step in and talk as best I can about her area.
All right, excellent. And I think something that really is notable here, you mentioned it, and I think it's exciting and differentiates firearms legal protection from some other organizations, is not needing that carry permit, because that's a question that our marketing team and our customer service team gets asked very frequently. I'm thinking about taking the class, but I'm not sure the CWP or CPL or LTC, whatever it's called in your area. I'm not sure if I want to get it. And so what we tell people is this isn't based on whether you're licensed or not. It's based on whether you would ever defend yourself or others. And if you would ever do so, this is very valuable. And so we're happy to welcome anybody who would ever use a legal weapon to defend themselves, whether they have a carry permit or not.
And here's the other part about that. As you just said, you don't have to own a gun. That's the big part and the great thing about us, because we do have people that are just not comfortable with firearms, and they still want the same level of legal protection if they have to protect themselves. And we absolutely provide that for you.
So this is kind of the under the hood a little bit of how we operate. So a lot of people decided FLP is something based on the benefits that I should have, but they may not have really understood kind of what we do in the event of an emergency, or what happens when I actually have to make that call. So we're going to talk through that a little bit today.
Yeah, it's a lot of work that goes behind it. It's not one of those things, you pick up the phone, make a call, the attorney appears, and the case just goes away miraculously. There's a lot of work that goes behind that, and let's dig into it.
All right. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, there are several different ways that entities can operate and to provide benefits, coverages. There's numerous ways to look into it in this space. Right. And the top two, I guess, are prepaid legal versus insurance. And this isn't really a one's better than the other sort of thing. It's just how it's viewed legally. So Terry, help walk us through that.
Sure. A majority of you watching tonight who are FLP members are in our prepaid category. And what prepaid basically does, it gives us the ability to operate differently under different laws than those of insurance. So when you think of insurance generally, you generally think, for the most part, of some kind of deductible, some kind of limit, things along those lines. And believe it or not, each state has its own version of how these things operate. And being the good company that we are, and wanting to follow the laws of the states that we operate in, we have to follow those laws, and that's what determines whether we're prepaid or whether we're insurance. So if you're in a state like Florida, it's insurance. It's plain and simple. There are some things we can do there that we can't do in other states, and vice versa. But the core, the overall core of our product, and it doesn't change whether you're in an insurance state or whether you're in a prepaid state, is the uncapped attorney's fees. Now, unlike some other companies, we don't put a limit on it. And that's very important, because if your case gets very complicated and you've got only so much money. I mean, imagine having a service and your attorney runs out of money. I mean, where does that leave you? You've got things that you really need to do, but your attorney can't get paid. FLP doesn't operate that way. Our attorney's fees are uncapped. Again, whether it's prepaid, whether it's insurance, doesn't matter. We take care of that because that is the engine that's going to help defend you. And that's what you need more than anything else.
And we don't want the length of the trial or the total amount, the total expense to determine where we stop covering anything. If somebody needs protection, they straight up need protection, whether that's a $10,000 case or $1 million case. So that's something I really appreciate about this, that it basically, no matter what the price is, there's no cap anywhere in that.
And I'll tell you, a lot of times, people want to attorney shop. Well, how much is this? And what do you charge for that? And sometimes when attorneys get into the middle of a case, they find something that's a little unique or different, and it may take a little more money, or there may be something that they have to do that's different and unique that has never been done before. So we don't want to limit the protection that our members deserve and what we expect to give them as members of Firearms Legal Protection. Now, Plenty, I also see that you have. I'm sorry. Nope, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say this prepaid legal versus insurance, and you kind of touched on this earlier, is not really a FLP versus how the other guys do it as much as it is a state-by-state decision.
Absolutely. Certain states, for example, will use Florida. Florida has said this is insurance, and anyone in the state of Florida that's doing it properly should be set up as insurance. And all of our major competitors are set up as insurance that way. Other states, Texas, for example, is prepaid legal. So that's how, some states you have the option to go insurance or prepaid legal. And again, we believe that prepaid legal is a lot easier. We can give you a lot more benefits, and you'll hear about some of those tonight, So that's the states really control that, not necessarily Firearms Legal Protection or any of our competitors.
Yep. And the last bullet point I've got on here is civil damages. This is something in a civil trial. If damages are awarded, some of our competition lists a limit to what they'll pay out here. And it's something that we do not list a limit on. So can you help explain what this is, generally what Firearms Legal Protection, where our stance is on this, and why this is important?
Sure. Civil damages basically comes down to if, in fact, you are sued. For example, in certain states, you can defend yourself. And in some states, they have certain statutes in place that say, hey, if you are found not guilty or the other party isn't prosecuted, things along those lines, that the other party has no ability to come back and sue you civilly. That means take money from you, basically. Some states, they say, hey, yeah, sue away. It's up to you. Firearms Legal Protection understands that civil damages is an insurance product, okay? It is completely different. If you are prepaid, you have to have an insurance product, and there are certain things that have to happen if, in fact, you are under insurance. So, for example, if you have civil damages and somewhere along the way you've pled guilty or no contest, or maybe you were found guilty, that will take away any opportunity you would have for any of those other companies to cover you civilly. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay.
Wow. Firearms Legal Protection does not go into that arena because, again, it's a brand of insurance and it's a special type of insurance that would have to happen. And that's just something we choose not to do. We choose to fight the battle up front in the courtroom and try and do everything we can to make sure that you walk away, and not put yourself in any type of civil liability. While we can't promise that, that's always our goal.
Yeah, and I appreciate that the goal is to win. The goal isn't to pay out at a certain amount or cover up to a certain amount. The goal is to win and to protect you.
Exactly. That's what our attorneys do.
That's great.
And
So we
again,
have a number of different plans, and there's some plans that are specialized state by state, kind of like you were mentioning in insurance states versus prepaid legal states. And then we also have multiple different plan levels. So this is kind of at the top level. Every single plan includes these things.
correct. Every single plan, you get access to the main core product, which is uncapped attorney's fees. Now, we've got a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week emergency hotline answered by an attorney. And the reason it's answered by an attorney is because no matter what you say to that attorney, it's covered under attorney-client privilege. So if you say something like, hey, I just killed 5 people, I buried 4 in the backyard, what should I do with the 5th body, right? We're not allowed to say that to anybody because it's under attorney-client privilege. So if you call another company and let's say it's a answering machine or a answering service or someone that's not an attorney, that conversation can actually come into court and someone can be compelled to say what you've said to them. And that's not something we want. We want to put our members in the best possible position, literally, from the time the incident starts.
Yeah, that's extremely important. And I also like that hotline never goes to an answering machine.
No. An attorney should pick up, and it's not just one attorney. If one can't answer, we have a tree of attorneys that it goes to, so someone will answer that phone.
That's great.
And here's the other great part of this. We talked about the uncapped criminal side and civil as well. So again, if someone's suing you for money, we are there and we provide attorney's fees for that as well. But the big part of this is not reimbursement. So you don't have to come out of pocket for any attorney's fees or any of our benefits, as a matter of fact. All you've got to do is pay your monthly or annual fee. And as Plenty has said several times, you don't need a permit to be a member. All you've got to do is sign up.
Great stuff. Thanks, Terry.
Well, I guess here we're talking about, this is the bigger question. I think a lot of people wonder, well, what does your service do? Again, this is defense related to any legal weapon. So if you ever have to discharge or display your firearm or produce it, not even your firearm, we've covered people who have used knives. We've covered people that have used pepper spray, baseball bats. If you ever find yourself in that position as a member of Firearms Legal Protection where you're defending yourself or others, all you've got to do is pick up the phone, dial that emergency hotline right away, and an attorney will start to guide you in the process.
And I think it's great that there are a lot of us who are firearm owners, people who carry frequently. Even if you carry frequently, there are a lot of places where you got to leave it in the car. You can't bring it in the building. You got to leave it at home. So I like that your legal protection, you don't have to leave that behind, even if you go into one of these places. So if you have a knife, pepper spray, anything else, you're still covered. It's not just your status as a firearm carrier.
Well, that's correct. And it's you go into, as we term them, pistol-free zones or gun-free zones, where you're not allowed to bring your firearm there, but doesn't say you can't bring pepper spray in some places. Doesn't say you can't maybe bring a pocket knife or something along those lines. Again, not promoting violence, but we just want you to know that we're here to protect you regardless, as long as it's a use of a weapon incident.
And this last bullet here, even if you use it to help defend other people.
Yes, absolutely. Because you will get in the same amount of legal peril that you would if you were doing it to protect yourself. So again, we want to make sure our members are covered, especially if they're doing something to help out one of their fellow neighbors.
Yep. So, Terry, tell us a little bit about the attorney network. How does that work? Who is involved? What is the experience? Just give us a general, I guess, profile of the attorneys who help out the members of Firearms Legal Protection.
We have the best attorneys, bar none. All of our attorneys are very passionate about defending our members, not just in one part of the country, all across the country. We've got over 2,000 attorneys across the country. That number is growing constantly. All of our attorneys are experienced attorneys, so we don't get people that are literally fresh out of law school, just past the bar. They've done a traffic case here or there, and we say, hey, now come on and, handle this, potential case that could put someone away for the rest of their life. We don't do that. We want to make sure you're getting the best type of attorney out there. And what we do, we have a vetting process. And, part of it is, as you see on the overhead there, old school overhead. So I'll say PowerPoint. Sorry, kind of dating myself there. But all of our attorneys have a minimum of 5 years of criminal defense experience, okay? The good part of that is we don't want someone going into court trying their case out for the very first time on our members. That's not what you're paying us for. You're paying us to get the best possible attorneys out there. Now, I hear a lot of times people say, can I choose my own attorney? That option is there, but here's the thing I want you to keep in mind. We know what we're looking for in attorneys. So let me give you an example. I sat down with an attorney probably a year or so ago in Pennsylvania. Heard a lot of good things about this attorney, how good he is, how well respected he is. And I asked one single question of that attorney, and that question is, if a member got in trouble Friday night, how soon would you be able, and he was locked up, how soon would you be able to get to that member? The guy kind of sat back. He thought about it. He said, well, Monday mornings are pretty busy. I could probably do it after first call Monday afternoon. And I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, that guy is not in our network. The reason being is the expectation is we call, they go. And once our emergency management team makes that phone call, we've had attorneys arrive as soon as within the hour or as soon as possible. We don't give a time frame that they're going to get there, but I promise you it will not be days. It will be as soon as reasonably possible. You got to take some things into consideration, like, is it snowing, the weather conditions, how far away they're coming. But generally, we get our attorneys there fast because whether it's at the scene or at the jail, we want you, and more importantly, the police and the prosecutors to know that you are represented by a skilled criminal defense attorney.
It's great to know that the vetting standards are based on skill and experience, but also that speed to reaction. It's a scramble the fighters. It's an immediate sprint to be there as fast as possible before anything is said that may incur in any other trouble or anything like that. It's so important that that's such a fast reaction, but is also qualified with great experience as well.
Absolutely. And again, this is what our members want. You are paying us. If anything ever happens, you want to make sure you're covered. And we've said in many of our marketing materials, plenty that you put out, it's that peace of mind of knowing I will be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. So important. So you mentioned the emergency management team earlier, and I think this is when a lot of people hear about firearms legal protection from friends or family, or maybe it's the range where they go shoot a lot, or maybe it was the instructor who taught a concealed carry class. They hear all the benefits of firearms legal protection. They know we send out an attorney, but they don't really know what happens when they make the call. They don't know about the emergency management team. They don't know how we scramble that fast response. So Terry, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is under a member benefits department. As I mentioned, our VP, Linda Bishop, handles that area. And I'm very proud to have this, as I like to call it, triage approach to making sure our members are taken care of. It's not just sending an attorney, because here's the interesting thing. If you're one of our premium members, you get all of our benefits, and those include bail bond coverage and incident scene cleanup and a few others we'll talk about. But what the EMT team does is, once that call comes in from the emergency hotline, answered by an attorney, they send it to the EMT team. And again, they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they will dispatch a local attorney. Now, here's the good thing about our network. We just don't have one attorney in an area. So, for example, if you're in where you are plenty in Dallas, Texas, if something were to happen there and we only had one attorney, that wouldn't be good. What if that attorney's on vacation or out of town or something along those lines? We have several attorneys that can get to you in a reasonable amount of time. And the other thing that the EMT team does is they work with the attorney. So when bail is set, because again, with our benefits, you get up to $250,000 paid. And this is monies you don't have to pay back. We pay it directly to the bail bonds service, and they will take care of everything. Now, here's the interesting thing. Depending upon the state you're in, if you're in a state like Arizona, Arizona has a law that says they have up to 24 hours to basically put you before a judge or magistrate and grant you bond. Okay? Come to Michigan, that number changes from 24 to 72 hours. So we have to be able to react. So when the attorney says, okay, I'm going for a bond hearing, once we know what that number is, our bonds people are ready to roll, ready to activate. And plenty, if you go back, we've got in our library a few webinars where we've done with bail bonds folks, and people should go back and take a look at how that actually operates. But we don't want you sitting around for days in jail waiting on someone to post bond. So all of this generally happens very quickly. And the other thing, as it relates to the EMT team, the third component of that is, if this happens in your home, someone's got to clean that mess up. And you don't want to be behind trying to clean up someone's human waste. You don't know what's in their blood, and again, I'm not trying to get gross here, but it could be bone fragments, skull fragments, organs, etc. Someone's got to clean it up, and I promise you, it's not going to be your local police department or the coroner. They're just going to take the body and move it out. Firearms Legal Protection sends out a trained biohazard, because that's what it is, biohazard team to come out and take care of that crime scene. Now, let me say this. We come out after the police release the scene. Don't call us before and say, I just shot a guy. Get the incident scene cleanup team over here. It's after the police release the scene. So this is a process that has to happen, all three of these things, very quickly.
Especially if you're arrested, put in the back of a car and hauled off, that scene's not getting any better. Somebody's got to handle that ASAP.
Absolutely. And think of it this way. Disposal of this product, you just can't put it to the curb like you do everything else. You can't use Windex and paper towels to clean it up. It has to be done professionally. And you're right. If you're locked up, you're taken down for interrogation. And let's say you're in a state like Michigan, it may take 3 days and they may say, we're not going to charge you, go home. You now have to go back to this mess. But as an FLP member, you're going to go back, and that part of your house is going to be cleaned, sterilized, and not contaminated, so you can rest a little easier as it relates to that particular portion.
Yeah, that's very important. So when you make a call, this is kind of the flow of how it works, how that hotline gets activated and the message goes on to the emergency management team. You've kind of hinted at and implied all this. I think the visual is helpful for people to see it. Terry, is there anything else that we need to kind of understand about kind of this order of how it works?
Well, not necessarily the order, but more so the commitment that I really want people to walk away with. You've got an attorney answering the hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the emergency management team is there to say, okay, let's get these people in action. They call the responding attorney. They'll call the bail bonds folks. They'll have everything ready to go. All of this happens pretty quickly once we receive a phone call, because again, taking care of our members is our top priority should an event ever materialize.
Great stuff. So there are a bunch of additional benefits as well. So the core of our product at all membership levels is the uncapped attorney fees for both criminal and civil trials. But there's also a lot more for premium members. So Terry, can you help us understand this a little bit?
Sure. And what we try to do is on the member benefit side, Linda and her team, they're constantly looking to add things and enhance some of the services that could happen. For example, the counseling support. How important is it to truly sit down and talk to somebody about what happened? I think that's very important. And FLP is going to pay you or pay a psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker. You get to pick pick which one you want to deal with, someone that you're comfortable with. And we hope to help. We hope that helps you out, just getting some professional help there, because that is a life-changing event if you ever have to pull that trigger and not necessarily shoot someone, but even shoot at them. We've dealt with a lot of people, and it really changes their life. And we want to make sure that as they come back to society, that they're as healthy as they possibly can be, not just physically, but mentally as well. So that counseling support is there, and that's a great way to help our members, again, get back to a normal life after such a tragic event may have occurred.
I think that's really important, because it doesn't matter how tough you are, how much stuff you've seen. You go through an experience like that, and you're going to have some stuff rolling around in the back of your head. That's going to impact you, and in a deep way that could be very harmful. And so our goal isn't just to keep you out of jail, but it's to try to help you move on with your life after something like this. So being able to talk to a counselor, and especially since you get to pick a counselor in your area, somebody you know, somebody you connect with, somebody you can trust as you work through all this stuff, goodness, that's so important.
It really is. And some of us as gun owners, like to say, hey, I'm going to do what I got to do. And I was just protecting myself. But like you said, it's in your conscience. It's rolling around in the back of your head. And you talk to people that have, especially our law enforcement officers, who have had situations where they've had to use lethal force to protect themselves or others. A lot of them will say, hey, it took me a while to get back, 18 months, 2 years. But for having somebody to talk to, but for the benefits that I had as an officer, it would have been a lot tougher. And we want to try and do that as well at Firearms Legal Protection. We want to try and make sure that you have benefits like this, so that you can, again, get yourself back together and work through some of the things that may have happened to you.
Yeah. Well, tell us, kind of in the spirit of getting back and making up for kind of what's been missed or what changed in your life, tell us about the lost wages benefit.
Yeah, again, we understand at Firearms Legal Protection that, no one sits down and basically says, hey, I think I'm going to shoot somebody next Wednesday at 5:00, and I need to get everything lined up here just in case this happens. There are things that have happened that we've seen happen that, again, we've added to our benefits. The lost wages is just one. Again, this is not one where someone's going to, get rich off of or anything along those lines. What this basically does is, as you go to court, you have to take a day off or a couple of days off, et cetera, because unfortunately, you have to be there. There's no ways around it. If a court says you will be here on this day at this time, your job pretty much has no choice. Now, your job doesn't have to pay you, but what we like to do is step in the shoes of your job at that point and take care of your wages for the days that you'll be in court. The reason being, again, we want to try and, we're not trying to make you rich, but we just don't want you to lose money as a result of protecting yourself. So these are some of the things that we've talked about. And again, you're not going to get rich off of this benefit, but it's a little something just to help out. Because again, there's a possibility during this that your boss may give you a hard time about this and may not want to pay you for going to court where you're mandated by a judge.
Yeah. Want to know a lot of people, myself included, really watch that PTO time, manage it carefully. And if you run out, then you're going to have to take a huge hit for having to go to court and do all these things that you're basically forced to do. So that's really nice to help kind of retain your financial status and keep things as close to the status quo as they possibly can be as you deal with all this stuff.
Absolutely. It's expensive, but here's a good thing. We want to do what we can to help our members out. And that's what we're here for.
Great. Well, tell me about this firearm confiscation payment. I know a lot of times firearms are seized immediately as evidence, and I've heard it can take a very long time to get those firearms to come back, and sometimes they don't ever. So that's where this comes in. Tell us how this works.
Well, again, this is something else we want to make sure that, our members can get back to a certain point. Now, again, if you have a firearm and you use it in a shooting or, you've had to display it, especially in a shooting, there's probably a 99.999% chance the police are going to take that particular gun. Why? Because it's evidence of a potential crime. Even if you are defending yourself and it's deemed justified, there was still a crime that was committed. And sometimes the police will take whatever evidence is around, whether it's the if the perpetrator left a shoe behind, that's going into evidence. If they dropped a wallet, that's going into evidence. You shot a firearm, that's going into evidence. Now, the police will hold this for as long as they want, and it's going to vary by state. I've got a good friend of mine who was an officer, and he had a shooting in another city while he was on duty, and he retired. 18 years later, he still never got that gun back.
Goodness.
Think about it. He was on the force for a long period of time, had the shooting, worked, 18 years later retired, and never got that gun back. He didn't really care because it was the department's gun and they were going to give him another one. But imagine if that was you. So what Firearms Legal Protection has done is we've said, if you don't get that gun back in a year, we're going to cut you a check for the value of that gun up to $1,000. Okay. So if you had a SIG 365, we're going to replace that SIG 365 up to $1,000. Because again, if you think about the lost wages and some of the other things, the counseling, if you've had to spend your money on those things, guess what? You may not have money to go out and get another firearm. So we want to try and put you back in a position, again, where you can even protect yourself again, because again, you may or may not ever get that firearm back. So I always, and I got to say this plenty, I always get the question, well, what happens after a year if they bring me the firearm back? Let's say it's a year and a week. Well, guess what? I guess you've got two firearms now, because we're not going to come back and say, hey, you just got it last week, give us our money back.
Yeah. So it's a payment to make you whole again. And then if you get it back, even better.
Absolutely.
So the one qualification that I think occasionally comes up on that where it's hard to kind of ascertain the value is if somebody does some custom work on their firearm, does a crazy custom trigger job, or has a fancy paint job. And I think that's the one area where it just gets to a point where we can't really qualify that and assess a value of that. So I think you provided a very good example. It was a SIG P365 that was compensated. We'll look at the exact model you have. Okay, you've got the one that came with factory magazine or factory night sights and a 10-round magazine. Okay, that's what we're going to reimburse you for. So
Right.
I think the team does a very good job of assessing that value and fairly paying you back very quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us about the expert witness. I know that's something that it's not needed in some cases. In some cases, that's a game changer, and it totally changes the way a scene can be perceived. So tell us how that's arranged, how that's paid for, how that's covered. When does that come into effect? Just help educate us on that process.
Sure. And all the benefits listed here are things that come after the EMT. And what I mean by that
Mhm.
is if you use the analogy of the triage, services from a hospital standpoint, if you look at that, this is happening right now within the first, if you can go back to that previous slide,
Yeah.
everything you're looking at here happens about within, again, from the time you call, again, assuming this is happening right away, up until about 72 or a little more hours there. The other benefits on the next slide basically are benefits that you can get later on. You just have to get a hold of member benefits and just request those, and it's very simple. The expert witness is one that maybe your attorney, either you or your attorney, would request. And what an expert witness does is this is someone that may come in and look at the trajectory of a bullet, where it went, the angle, and they may say, well, based upon this angle, the person that shot the gun, our member, was at this angle, and there's no way in the world that what the defendant is saying is true. The state, the people who are prosecuting you, they do this all the time. They use the police force and other types of experts to come in and talk about markings on casings. They talk about trajectory. They talk about things that are quote unquote what they believe is legal. We have our own expert witnesses. As a matter of fact, Plenty, I think there was a press release last month. We just added John Correa as one of our expert witnesses from Active Self-Protection. And what he will do, if in fact he is one of the experts that will be used, he'll look at something like videos and literally break them down in terms of step by step, moment by moment, and talk about how someone is potentially in their legal rights defending themselves. So that is a very powerful tool that we give you to, as a member, to assist the attorney. Because again, I could tell you, having tried many cases where experts are brought in, sometimes court cases and verdicts come down to the battle of the experts, because one expert will say this, another expert will say that, and sometimes they're in conflict. It's good to have your own expert sometimes to refute what the state is saying.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And there's always going to be evidence, but having an expert who can analyze that evidence and help use it to present a case in a way that's we can interpret it to be meaningful, that's powerful.
Well, it is, because again, it's another tool in the toolbox that the attorney can use to help you. And here's the good thing about it, when I was in private practice, if I wanted an expert, that doesn't come out of the attorney's fee. It comes out of the client's pocket. And if the client can't afford an expert, like most people can't, then guess what happens? That client is somewhat prejudiced because he is not in the same position that the state is in. And, the example I really like to use with this and investigator fees, and we'll talk about that momentarily, is O.J. Simpson. Now, again, whether you think he's guilty or not, that's not the question. The reason that case got as far as it did is because Mr. Simpson could afford expert witnesses to come in and analyze DNA and blood evidence and things along those lines, because the state had their experts giving their side and
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Simpson had his. And think about how that case would have gone if if the jury didn't hear from Mr. Simpson's experts and they weren't there. I think you would have had a completely different outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, so the expert is great for just assessing that and analyzing that evidence, but I know a lot of times some extra digging is required to look into things and better assess that evidence and just to look at more information. And so that's when a private investigator comes in. So tell us a little bit about how that investigator differs from the expert witness and how that can be an advantage in one of these cases.
Sure. So, two completely different roles. Again, the expert witness is the one that's going to go into court and assist the attorney from a standpoint of how to look at evidence. The investigator basically goes out and helps find the evidence, finds witnesses. Now, I want you to think about it. Again, it depends on where you are in the country. They're called different things. Some people are called the officer in charge of the case, or the detective in charge of the case, or it just depends on what part of the country you're in. But the prosecutor has one person that gathers all the evidence, talks to the witnesses, provides statements, the whole 9 yards. On the defense side, we have to rely on that officer to give us everything. That's called discovery. Imagine if the guy doesn't want to interview someone that we'd have no idea about. That's where having a private investigator to come out and say, okay, listen, I need you to go interview Plenty because Plenty saw this, but he doesn't want to tell anybody. So investigators will go out, they will gather that type of evidence, bring it back to the attorney, work with the attorney. So it's your own private detective helping you out, the same way that the state has their own detectives who are called the police, helping them out. So again, it's a way to even that score as best as possible.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely somebody you want in your court for sure.
Yeah, and all of these benefits again are here for the asking. From the EMT perspective, they come as soon as you make that phone call if needed. Whether if you don't get locked up, obviously we're not going to send a bail bondsman to you. And if there's no blood, there's not going to be a reason to send a incident scene cleanup crew. But they're right there, and member benefits is ready to go, and they're ready to make that happen. These benefits on the screen, you or your attorney just have to request, and we don't fight you. We don't say, hey, well, do you really need it? Or you get them. That's what they're there for. That's what you're paying for. And that's how FLP really differentiates ourselves, by trying to take care of our members and making sure we give you everything we believe you can possibly need should an unfortunate event arise and you have to defend yourself or others using a weapon.
That's excellent. That's very powerful stuff. So another benefit that we have that is probably our newest benefit that applies now to all plan levels is red flag law coverage. And I follow the news quite a bit, stuff related to firearms legislation. And I think red flag laws are one of the most frightening things that I've seen in the last several years. They're also called extreme risk protection orders. And it's basically if you're deemed a danger to yourself or others, somebody can say, hey, we're going to kind of go around the standard legal process here, and we're going to take your guns. We're going to seize them. That's frightening to me. And it's a trend that we see growing and growing. And I know in my state of Texas, it was proposed, but fortunately it did not pass. But there's a lot of states, and I'm sure you keep a running tally of this, where this is a thing and it continues to grow. So tell us about the danger of red flag laws and how firearms legal protection can help.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll do this one very briefly because this one
Hmm.
alone can have its own seminar or
Right.
webinar at some point. But I'll tell you, red flag is, as you mentioned, plenty. I mean, imagine a situation where you have to prove something that didn't happen. And let me give you an example. The one I like to use is, you come home and your significant other says, "You've been cheating on me," and you look shocked and surprised and you say, "Well, what do you mean I've been cheating on you?" And your significant other says, "Well, prove to me that you're not cheating on me." How do you prove that?
Yeah.
As opposed to your significant other saying, "Well, listen, I've got pictures of you, I've got, whatever, other things, etc." This is how red flag works. It's not the fact that the government has got to prove something. It's the fact that you now have to prove that you are not a danger to yourself or others. And Firearms Legal Protection wants to take care of any of our members, regardless of, whether you have our basic plan or you have our premium or premium family plan. Red flag is covered. So something happens, just give us a call. You call us at our customer service number. They'll get you over to member benefits, and we will get all of this squared away, and we'll provide you an attorney to fight the red flag law in your state.
It's scary stuff, and it's so great to have that protection.
And here's the thing, and with any of our benefits, you never know when you're going to need them. And if Linda were able to make it today, she would tell you about all the members that she's talked to over the years who've always said the following: "I never believed I would need this service, but I'm
Hmm.
so glad I have it. I didn't realize that this was there, but you guys took care of everything." And our member benefits coordinators and all those folks are just really great people. And they work really hard around the clock. If something were to happen, whether it's 5 in the afternoon or 5 in the morning, they're there to help.
And it's a bit thankless too, because it's one of those things that everything goes so smoothly because there's so much happening behind the scenes that we don't even see. So that is so appreciated, all the work that team goes to.
Absolutely. Good people there. Good people. And
There's
plenty, you
another bit.
also get
Oh,
the,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, you also get, every member now gets the MyFLP app. Download it on your phone. It's really great. It gives you state by state reciprocity. You want to know where you can carry your firearm. Is there magazine restrictions, etc.? Click on the MyFLP app. It's phenomenal. It continually updates, so something happens in the state of Illinois tomorrow, they're going to put it on there so you're always current. And the other great thing about this app is you can contact the emergency hotline and customer service right off of your app, so you never have to worry about what's the number, how do I find it. Go on your phone, click the app, push a button, and we'll take care of you, whether it's customer service or whether it's the emergency management team.
And I know these days we're a very connected world, and everybody's got a mobile app, right? And so sometimes, whether it's your local grocery store or your dry cleaner, or you're like, okay, you got a mobile app, cool, whatever. But in this business, it's really important. Even something as simple as I have an easy button for that emergency contact. I don't have to go through my contacts and remember, did I save it as emergency hotline or did I save it as firearms legal protection? You open the app and it's a big button called emergency. And then something that I've found a huge benefit to, I travel a fair amount. So I'm able to put in that I have a Texas permit. Then I can go see, okay, here are the 38 states that recognize my Texas permit. It's all laid out here on a map. They tell me the carry restrictions. It's an extremely helpful tool.
It is. It really is. And for those of you who have not signed up for the MyFLP app, it is free. It is free, regardless of the plan. Please sign up and take advantage of that.
So let's go through kind of the membership levels a little bit here. So we've talked about these benefits in depth and the whole spirit, the mission behind our service. everything we do is motivated by the idea of protect yourself and we'll protect you. We're here to support those who stand up for protecting themselves or others. So we offer multiple different plan levels, and it's all dedicated behind kind of this spirit, this approach, this idea. So our most affordable plan is this individual basic plan. So that gives you the uncapped attorney fees for both civil and criminal cases. It's applicable for all legal weapons. We mentioned the red flag laws, the 24-hour emergency service, access to the mobile app. All of this is covered, even with the most basic, most affordable plan. So anybody watching this, make sure to check down in the bottom, check in the description of this video, and you will see a link and a discount code. And that's how you get these special prices that you'll see on screen. This is better than our standard website pricing.
And Plenty, just so everybody's clear, this plan just covers you in the state you live in. So
yes,
if you live in South Carolina and you want to go over to Georgia for the weekend, this plan will not cover you in Georgia if something were to happen.
Yep. And that's why we have plans of all levels, because if you're somebody who just doesn't like to travel a lot and you like to stay at home and you appreciate a good deal, this is the plan for you. But that kind of brings us to our most popular plan, which is our individual premium or our nationwide plan. So it has all the benefits of the basic plan that we just talked about, plus some of those other benefits like bail bond protection up to $250,000. Expert witness and investigator fees are covered. The counseling support is covered. Lost wages, incident cleanup, firearms confiscation payment, everything we just discussed, even outside of your home state, that all comes into play with the premium plan, which is what the majority of our members tend to go with just because of all these great benefits.
Absolutely. And even if you don't travel, keep this in mind. You still get all of these benefits in your state. So the core benefit is in every plan, but these benefits cover you not only in your state, but everywhere in the United States that you go, all 50 states.
Yes. And then you can protect your whole family as well. A lot of people say, well, these benefits are great for me, but what about my wife or my girlfriend? What happens there? So that's where the family premium plan comes into play. You get all the exact same benefits, but coverage for your spouse and coverage for all minor children that live in your home.
That's right. And just so everybody's clear, minor children are not the 35-year-olds that are living in the basement. I just want to say that out loud. But minor children are ages 17 and younger. So we'll cover them. And when they turn 18, my God, what a great birthday present for them if you want to get them a premium plan. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And all these plans you can pay month to month, or you can save a little bit by paying annually. So again, make sure you check out that link in the description, check out the code on that page, and you can sign up and get these great prices.
Outstanding.
So that's the special discount. Just again, an overview of all the different plans. Now, if you're in one of those insurance states that we mentioned previously, like Florida or Georgia, things do change a little bit, but this is what it looks like in most places.
Yeah, and if you're there, go to our website. If we haven't mentioned check out the states. If you're in Florida or Georgia, again, pricing's a little different, but the content is very close to the same.
And for anybody who's kind of on the fence, this is something that I think is extremely valuable about firearms legal protection. You can cancel ultimately at any time, but you have 7 days from when you very first sign up before everything gets locked in. So you can cancel with a full refund within 7 days. So if you're on the fence, go ahead and sign up, look at the benefits, test it out, learn about it. And if you need to cancel, it's risk-free.
Good. And that's the good part about this, the full refund that you get 100% in 7 days. And after the 7 days, there's no fee to cancel. You just pay for the month or months that you've used. So if you sign up yearly and you say, hey, a month from now you don't want to do it, there's no fee to cancel. We're just going to refund you what you haven't used. Can't make it any easier, Plenty.
Yep. Minimal risk to protect yourself for what could be so valuable when you actually need it. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a great summary of what firearms legal protection provides, why it's available. It's so important. Anything else you want to add? Any frequently asked questions that you feel like we need to touch on here?
Just a couple of things. We hear a lot of people who always say the following. I should have signed up. I wish, I heard the presentation, and, I can think of 5 people off the top of my head, literally, who've called and said, hey, this happened to me last week. Can I still be a member? You can be a member anytime. You sign up anytime, but your coverage will only start, your benefits and plan will only start from the time you sign up moving forward. And if you're on the fence or you're thinking about it, again, we're not trying to twist your arm. Plenty's covered. I'm covered. This is what we do. We're excited. We want to make sure we have as many people out here as possible that are covered, because we want you guys to be in a position if something were to happen where you're protected, where to pick up the phone and say, let me call FLP, and put your mind at ease at that point. So that's all I want to say. Don't hesitate. If you're thinking about it, go ahead and do it. You've got 7 days to change your mind. Don't be one of the ones that say, I thought about that the other day and something happened. I wish I would have.
Yeah. And I think that really resonates too. There's so many people who bought a firearm for the purpose of, well, what if I need to protect myself? Well, you're going to need to protect yourself legally just as much as you're going to need to protect yourself physically. So if you fill up your car before it's on E, if you own a firearm just in case, if you keep a fire extinguisher in your house, you're in the right state of mind to say, how do I need to prepare? How do I need to protect myself ahead of time? FLP is probably for you. Be prepared, protect yourself ahead of time.
And let me say this last thing. You don't want an attorney that works on minimum wage.
That is a great point. I think that's a fantastic point to end it on. And Terry, thank you so much for just walking us through all these things. For people who are members wanting to understand their service better, for people who are maybe on the fence trying to decide what this really means and whether it's valuable or not, or maybe people who have never heard about this before, I think this was incredibly valuable to dig into those benefits.
We look forward to it. And again, on behalf of Firearms Legal Protection, we've always got room under the tent for you. And as we've said, protect yourself. We'll protect you.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everybody.